I'm here in Italy finishing up a moderately successful modeling career. So, if I inherited anything from my grandfather, it was long legs. I'm 6'2" tall. Hello and welcome to Talk About Strange. I've got a phenomenal story here for you. This is going to be a lot of fun. You guys are going to enjoy this. And I'm really hoping that she's going to write us some more because this is going to be really cool. I don't have any big updates for you. We're just still working on the whole move thing and trying to figure out where exactly we're going to go from here. We got some things in the works. I'll keep you updated on that. As soon as we get that wrapped up, then we're going to fire off that new channel. So keep an eye open for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're really excited about it. I hope you guys had a great Easter weekend. We're getting through the week here now. Geez, today's Thursday already. So we're coming into the weekend, so it's perfect timing. I got some other stories I want to share with you here as well, and we're just going to keep the ball rolling, right? So without any further ado, let's. I do want to mention, we've had some good sales in the Talk About Strange store. If you guys don't know where that's at, go to my homepage, the YouTube homepage, and there's a link right there. Or you can go into the About section, and somewhere in there, there's a link for the Talk About Strange store. You can go on there and get your merchandise. There's a lot of cool stuff. We got some great discounts for that. And if you have membership, and we have 5% off if you're not a member. So look for that in the comment section, the community section. I think I put that in. What else do we got? I think that's probably it for now. If you have a story you want to share, that link is also on there. So remember that. I know some people try to use the same, like an email for my YouTube name there, Talk About Strange 2023. That's not it. It's Talk About Strange 2024 at gmail.com. So if you want to share a story, that's how you do it. Please, if you have stories you want to share, send them in. We're going through this whole move thing, but I'm trying to keep up the best I can at the same time. All right? All right. So let's move right on to this one. You guys are going to like this. This is kind of neat. I was a little confused at first when it starts out with bonjour. My name is Eva. I'm 34 years old. I'm of Russian descent, but I live in Italy for the past 8 years. Sometime soon, I would like to move to the U.S., as long as peace holds out there. It seems there's turbulence everywhere these days, but that is not why I'm writing to you. A couple of weeks ago, I come across your wonderful channel and all the way over here. I read a lot of the comments, and I see I am not the first foreigner to find you, or the first Bigfoot descendant. Yes, you read that right. Apparently, I am what you call a hybrid like Claire. I too have a story I'd like to share with you and your amazing TAS family. I believe that is what you call them. Maybe I will become a part of this family as well. The first video I watched was titled Family Rescued from Killer Bigfoot, written by Randy. I really enjoyed her story, and I am so glad that those hunters saved her and her family. I guess I'm lucky I've only ever met the creatures you call Bigfoot back home when I was just a girl. I've heard good and bad things about people from all around the world. Sometimes I get offended, but then I remember what my I'm going to try this. Desdushuka, Russian for grandfather, told me that people are afraid of what they don't understand. You have to correct me if I'm wrong on that. I think I got that right. I was busy when I watched the first video and moved on shortly after, but for some reason it just couldn't get it out of my head, out of my mind. So a couple of days later, I sat down with a glass of red wine and started watching one after the other. I was completely hooked, and before I knew it, morning was upon me. Throughout the night, I laughed and cried. A couple I even shook my head at. But the ones that got me the most was the whole saga, I Gave Birth to Bigfoot's Daughter, by Wendy and Claire. I Gave Birth to Bigfoot's Son, by Mark. But most of all, I Gave Birth to Bigfoot Twins, by Jane, because her story sounded so much like my babula, Russian for grandmother, rest her soul. First, let's talk about the last story in the saga, Battle of the Brothers. That was very sad, but also very true. I heard so many stories like that while growing up. My grandfather told my mother and I stories about great battles between what Claire likes to refer to as clansmen. I'm okay with that title. He spoke of battles that go back for centuries, when clans and clansmen were plentiful all across the country. He told us stories all the way leading up to the one he fought in order to be free from his own clan to live with my grandmother. He told us the fight was long and brutal, but ended. In the end, he was allowed to leave. My grandmother was born and raised in western Russia in 1907, an eye shot of the Ural Mountains where my grandfather grew up. He was a lot older than her. I believe he is still alive today. We lost her in 2012. She was 105 years old. Wow. God bless her. I hope I'm so lucky. But my grandmother was a very strong woman. She lived a happy, healthy life and passed away peacefully in her sleep, lying next to her love. After she passed away, grandfather returned to his home. He still checks in on my mother and sometimes on us when we visit. I come from a family of farmers, hunters, and trappers. I knew how to skin a rabbit and tan a hide by the time I was 8 years old. My mother traveled for work, and so I stayed with my grandparents a lot. I spent most of my time bugging my grandfather in the work shed or even out in the garden. Funny story. My grandfather was a very big man, as you might already imagine. If I was to guess, he stood over 7 foot tall. Most farmers had oxen drag a plow. My grandfather would set me on his shoulders and pull the plow. I thought it was just normal until I got older. Then I just figured I had the strongest grandfather in the world. I think we all feel that way sometimes. We had farm animals and even oxen that he sometimes used. I gotta stop there for just a second. Although you may have had the strongest grandfather in the world. I guess that's how he stayed in shape. I didn't know what a Bigfoot or a Yeti was until I was a teenager. When my grandfather told us stories, it was just about his family and how they lived in the forest and in the mountains. It was years later that I put the pieces together. I just thought he was unusually big and hairy. He always wore clothes and a hat. I knew his chest and shoulders were covered in hair, but never seen him with his shirt off. I've seen a lot of very hairy men in my life. If you've ever visited Italy, you'll know what I'm talking about. Laugh out loud. Hey, I'm Italian. Although I do remember the top of his head was bald because he never wore his hat to the table. And I seen the top of his wrinkled head when he bowed to pray. I should tell you how they met. My great-grandparents built the house I owned. My great-grandparents built the house and owned the land where my grandparents lived and knew my grandfather's forest family for a very long time. At some point, something happened to my great-grandfather and he got sick. I believe he hurt his leg and got blood poisoning. Before he died, he asked my now grandfather to look after my great-grandmother and my mother and my young grandmother. When my grandmother was in her 20s, she left home for a while for schooling, if I remember right. While she was gone, my great-grandmother became ill, so she returned home to care for her until she passed away. During this time, she spent a lot of time with my grandfather, but was living completely alone on the farm after my grandmother passed away. Word got out that she was living alone, and one evening, some guys from town decided to pay her a visit. She never spoke of the details, only that she was hurt really bad. My grandfather found her in the barn on the floor. He carried her back to the house and stayed with her until she was better. My mother told me that it was pretty bad, that the mental scars were deeper than the others. She also told me something my grandparents never mentioned, that those men returned a few weeks later, but have never been seen or heard from again. I'm guessing they meant the mean side of my grandfather. I wouldn't be surprised. During that time, he looked after her. They fell in love. But eventually he had to make a choice between stopping seeing her or getting permission from his clan to stay with her as her husband. I never understood why he had to fight for his freedom to do this, but doesn't that just seem to be the theme of life? Seems we are always fighting for our freedom, still to this day. I don't remember if my grandfather could read or write. I knew he could talk, but he had a very deep voice and kind of an odd dialect that I just thought was normal for such a big guy. I'm sure there is more I could tell you about them, but for the most part they lived what I considered a normal, happy life. They tried for years to have children and called my mother a miracle baby. My mother had the same problem getting pregnant, so she adopted a son, and 1 year later had me. 2 years later after that, gave birth to my little brother. I had to laugh at some of the comments, asking if us Bigfoot kids are ugly, hairy, stinky people. Laugh out loud. If it helps, I'm here in Italy finishing up a moderately successful modeling career. So, if I inherited anything from my grandfather, it was long legs. I'm 6'2" tall and have long, thick red hair. Only mine is on the top of my head, unlike my grandfather. My little brother is 6'4". He works as a fitness trainer and all around natural good guy. But our older brother is always in some kind of trouble. But we love him and we all look out for each other when we can. All of us go back home at least once a year to see our mother. She lives in the old farmhouse still. She sold off the land and kept the house and the barn. Oh, it was once a very quiet place with no other houses too close by. Now she lives with neighbors and has friends all around. I guess that's good though. You might be wondering why I didn't mention my father. He was in the military and was off fighting some battle somewhere when I was very young and never come home. Okay, so I may have been too long here, but it felt good to tell our story. Hold on, wait a second. Okay, this may have been too long, but it felt good to tell our little story. I wish I had found you sooner. I would have loved to have met Wendy, Claire, Mark, or even Jane. They all seem so amazing. Who knows, maybe someday, right? If you would like, maybe when I have time off, I will write to you again some of the other stories that my grandparents told us. Until next time, Steve. Salve. Ciao. Bonjour. Eva. Cool. Oh, that's neat. Thank you so much, Eva, for sending that in to us. That's an amazing story, and it's a nice story. Some of the things that had happened with Wendy and Tommy and Anna and were kind of horrifying. Terrible things that happened to them. What happened to Jane again was a beautiful story. Tough and difficult, but beautiful story. It's nice to hear such a really good story like this and wow. I mean, so now Russia. Now I've heard a lot of people talk on here about Russia and families of Klansmen, for lack of a better word than to be respectful. Talk about these Klansmen that have lived and had families and stuff successfully there. I have no idea if this was anybody who's ever been mentioned in history. I don't know if you're willing to share that with us, but it'd be neat to know. That's just really cool. Anyway, yeah. Anything else you want to send to us? I'm sure people are going to go nuts over this. This is a great story. Please, if you have any more stories regarding this that your grandfather told you, we definitely want to hear them. So thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining me here again. I hope you have a wonderful evening. I'm going to try to get this posted here tonight still. And I will see you again really soon.